Okay, so let's just talk about these last three questions about treating diabetes in a child. It becomes a little more complicated, and it's not the same diabetes that we often see in adults, especially with obesity. That's type 2 diabetes. It's an insensitivity to insulin. So they still have their beta cells. They're still producing insulin, but their regular body cells are not responding to the insulin anymore. So it's the same issue of having sugar in the bloodstream, but it's not for the same reason. So in this case, we've got just the fact that we can't make insulin, so that the glucose can never get absorbed into the cells, all right? And so in this case, in this question, it says, what would be the effects of too much insulin? Well, if you give a ton of insulin to a child or somebody who's diabetic, even to a normal person, you're going to cause the same thing. What it'll do, it'll sequester all of those receptors to the outside of the cell, and all the glucose in the bloodstream is going to get sucked into all the cells, and that's going to cause major hypoglycemia, right? You'll go into a sugar total down, and now your brain doesn't have enough sugar to feed it. So I've actually seen this in diabetic patients. They kind of go a little crazy, like they start asking weird questions and they're very disoriented, and eventually they're going to go into a coma and die. So insulin shock is a really bad thing, and that causes hypoglycemia. And then here it says many adults, we do the Atkins diet. That's because they're not failing to produce insulin, they don't respond to insulin. And so what we want to do for them is encourage their bodies to use protein as a source, because it goes into the cell a different way. It doesn't use that GLUT4 insulin receptor, which would be okay for children, but if they're on insulin therapy, it really wouldn't be okay for children, because it doesn't get you enough energy for the amount of calories you can consume. But in a child, if they're on insulin therapy and you're giving them insulin and it's opening up those receptors and there's no sugar there, again, they could go into a hypoglycemic state. And so you would not want to do an Atkins diet with a child. And then the last question just asks, why would you give them a high carbohydrate snack before bed? Well, it's kind of obvious. Like, the main key to treating diabetes in children is to keep that blood sugar level constant, right? We don't want it to go up and down a lot. So a lot of small meals, and if they're going to go a long time overnight with no food, we want to kind of beef them up with sugar in the nighttime so that they have enough there when you give them the insulin in the morning. We're just trying to keep it steady. So that's the whole key for children, is keeping that blood sugar as steady as possible with small and frequent snacks, and then giving them the right amount of insulin, not too much. Yeah, so that's what it is.